Kansas City Chiefs 23, New York Jets 20. This was not the expected result, especially since the Chiefs got up 17-0. NBC had all the Taylor Swift songs and stories. They were all spooled up, ready to go. It's like, all right, we knew this was going to be a 3-touchdown game.
Couldn't get to any of it.
Didn't get to any of it because Zach Wilson grew up before our eyes. Grew up.
What a weird game.
It was a very weird game. Chiefs get the win, 23-20. So Chiefs get up 17-0, and it looked like, all right, same old deal.
Yeah.
Right? Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're unstoppable. Isaiah Pacheco with a 48-yard touchdown. Was it 48 right off the bat? Well,
kind of run that people don't
48-yard touchdown where nobody was in the area.
Well, the kind of run where he doesn't get people don't think he's capable of that kind of run, right? He made a guy miss in the backfield, and then Trey Smith obliterated a defender on a pull, and then he beats a DB for speed to the open space and runs it in, the length of what was left for the touchdown. That was the kind of play I don't think that people credit Pacheco for having the capacity to achieve.
Yeah, so it looked like, the way Kansas City moved the ball, there was also a 33-yarder to Pacheco as a check down where he was wide open. The Jets had 2 defensive penalties on the play, and Pacheco still picked up 33 with nobody near him. It looked like the Jets couldn't stop anything.
Yeah.
And then they started to stop things. And Patrick Mahomes started throwing the ball to the Jets.
Yeah. This was so weird because, so you're sort of the narrative going into the game, right? You're like, if the Jets have any shot whatsoever of winning this game, their defense is going to need to score points, right? Because the offense won't. And the defense, finally gets some points. They get a safety, a face mask or an illegal hands to the face call.
That's what started it.
Yeah, in the end zone, right? And it's great. We're on the board. The defense scored. But at that point, it's already 17-0. You're like, that's probably not enough. But it ended up actually almost being. And then for a while, the Jets were just on the razor-thin side, on the wrong side of a bunch of different almost things, almost calls, almost plays. A bunch of different sort of play. Zach Wilson throws what would have been a tough catch, but was one that hit him in the hands and probably should have been caught to Conklin in the end zone. Then the ground forces the incompletion. That's a 4-point play that bounces against them. They had another kind of incompletion that's just off. They just kept coming down slightly. He just missed Garrett Wilson for what should have been a touchdown. And you're like, everything is just going against them. Mahomes is tossing them the ball. They're close, but they're still not even in the lead yet, and Mahomes eventually is probably going to stop throwing them the ball, and then they lose the game. And
as I kept tweeting, but
yeah, and then he just didn't. He kept tossing it away.
You skipped over, you yada-yada'd the Zach Wilson coming of age. By the way, this will end up being his second or third best grade. It's not like we've never, ever seen him play well. He's had a couple good games in his 2+ years. But this was the best little in-game stretch where Wilson, it was funny because Chris, it was like Chris watching a son out there. Felt like we were all watching our son. I saw other people tweeting this and everything. It's like we were watching our little brother grow up before our eyes, right? He hit a wide open check down. We're like, all right, yeah. You hit the check down against cover 2 on time. That's incredible, Zach Wilson. Good job. But then he starts hitting back shoulders and I thought Chris covered it well. He was like, it wasn't just, is the throw there? It was the confidence. Even when he almost threw a pick, he did it with confidence, right? He was chucking that ball on time-ish and, showing off the arm a little bit. It was nice. Zach Wilson played well for a really good stretch of play. Now, all that said, it took Mahomes having a bit of a meltdown and Zach Wilson playing out of his mind for a stretch of play, and then he just drops a shotgun snap.
Yeah, that was sad, to be honest. I think people were getting a little bit over the top in terms of praising what he was doing. He was playing well.
It was relative to expectations.
Yes.
We're talking about when he for the last 3 weeks, when there was a completion that went beyond the first down marker for a first down, it was like, all right, good job.
Yeah.
That was unexpected.
I know.
So there were many of those in this game, which means it was well above the low expectations.
Of course it was. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, and he didn't look like it in this game. So for that reason alone, it's a much better game than you're normally anticipating from Zach Wilson. Having said that, it wasn't like a great game in the standard of quarterback play in the NFL.
Of course not.
So I felt like the praise was getting a little bit out of control for a while.
From Q2 to early Q4, though, it was a really good game.
But it was sad that it ended with such a sort of routinely bad goof that just ends the game. It's like, come on, like you had a chance to give yourself the shot to go on a drive and win the game, and we felt like we all kind of got robbed of the closure of that.
Twice, though.
Whichever way it would have gone.
For a couple reasons, though, right? Because Wilson drops the snap when they're down 3. And then it's like, all right, now it's inevitable. The Chiefs are going to score another touchdown. It's going to be a 30-20 game, and that's normal, right? And they're going to cover, too. And the Chiefs drive down, and instead you get a 3rd and 20 where Mahomes throws it up, kind of gets hit while he's throwing. It's an interception, and then they call a defensive hold on Sauce Gardner. Did not love that call. And, I mean, it felt like, I think the Super Bowl penalty was more real by James Bradbury. But it felt like we were robbed of entertainment.
Yeah.
Just like in the Super Bowl, we were robbed of a Jalen Hurts game-winning drive opportunity. In this game, I think we were really robbed. This was a bad call. It should have been Mahomes' 3rd interception, which is tough to do. And the Jets should have had a game-winning drive opportunity with about 2 minutes left, and we didn't get to see that.
I don't know that it was that bad. But my problem with it is I wouldn't have called it, and I don't think it should have been called, but not because it's technically not, holding or illegal contact or whatever, but because you haven't called that all game. Don't call it now. You can call that, but that's your standard now. If you're calling that in a game, there's going to be 4 or 5 illegal contact and holding penalties.
It's 3rd and 20. It's an automatic first down.
So, like,
the result of the play was an interception. It's so bad.
Yeah, so I wouldn't argue that it's like it's not illegal contact or holding or anything bad by the DB. My argument would simply be, if you're calling that in this game, there's 5 more penalties that you didn't call, that you left out there. So you've already set the standard that is not a penalty in this game. It's a blurry line heading into every game. You've already established where it is. Don't call it now, because that is inserting the official into this game in a way that shouldn't exist.
And then on top of all that, look, Mahomes did not have a good game throwing the ball whatsoever. He also had, like, one of his best plays was negated by a penalty as well, throwing the ball to Kelsey. But Mahomes didn't throw the ball well, but he ran the ball extremely well. So not only does he have that knack for picking up the first down, but he gets a 25-yarder on 3rd and 22 when the Jets were clearly trying to not let him run with their defensive line until they stopped, staying in their pass rush lanes. But Mahomes is incredible with his legs.
People accuse us a lot of having, bias. You hate my team, you're biased against this guy, you love this guy, you hate this guy, you're inconsistent with your thought process, blah, blah, right? And I actually spend some time at times trying to avoid that, trying to, you have a reaction to something in your head, you have a reaction to something else, and it occurs to you that is potentially inconsistent. So I was thinking last night, is there a difference between Josh Allen's meltdown on week 1, where the narrative coming out of that was Josh Allen cost them the game, Josh Allen, joke, awful, yada, yada, and the meltdown that Patrick Mahomes had yesterday, which is multiple really, really bad turnover-worthy plays to the Jets that was the only reason this game was close. And I was thinking about it, because you're like, that would be an example of what you're talking about, right? We have this preconceived idea of Josh Allen as a guy capable of that kind of meltdown, and Mahomes doesn't really get that reputation. I believe it's slightly different, although very similar for the reasons we've already outlined. The difference, though, I think, is, number one, the first game, the Josh Allen game, when you consider the way that game went, all this hype and everything's great, so good feeling, Aaron Rodgers, the Jets are back, we're going to be Super Bowl bound, baby, and then like 4 plays in, the entire building is deflated because Rodgers is now getting carted off, and it's like, oh God, Zach Wilson's back in the game, the whole season just went to hell. The deflation that was tangible in that stadium at the time, all the Josh Allen needed to do was to simply not throw them the ball. Like, if he'd punted every play instead, I honestly think they'd have won the game. If they had played territory, the Jets had no shot whatsoever of winning this game. This week, number one, that atmosphere isn't there. Like, you're not, as much as nobody expected the Jets to do anything, like, it wasn't like a palpable misery in the stadium at kickoff. You know what I mean? Number two, Zach Wilson was actually playing pretty well, so you couldn't necessarily just play defense, kick the ball to them, and expect to win this game. Mahomes actually did need to achieve something. And then number three, like, he did come good with the plays on the ground when they needed him to. So even with these meltdown plays, he held it together at the crucial moment, and that was ultimately the difference between winning and losing. So as much as the meltdown was bad and could have cost him the game, it didn't, and the reason it didn't was still Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think I agree. It was probably different. I mean, the interception before the half with Mahomes too. That wasn't like bad. It was a turnover, but it just took away a potential field goal opportunity from the Chiefs. It didn't give the Jets life or anything. It just took away a low chance opportunity at a late second field goal in the first half. The first interception by Mahomes, I mean, that was as bad as any Allen one. He looked at double coverage and was like, I'll just throw it over it and miss it.
Right.
I'll say this about Mahomes this year. He's had some weird underthrows all season where he's had, like he did it with Valdez-Scantling. I think it was 3rd and 1,000,000, and he was like, all right, Mahomes is winding up. He's got the shoulder tilt. When you see the shoulder tilt, they're throwing far, right? You see this? All right, how far is it going to go? I'm like 70 yards? It was like 10 yards short.
Yeah.
He did that in the Lions game a couple times. He's done that a few times this year.
And
the other one Chris said, he's like, Mahomes is a great touch thrower, and he tried to throw a touch throw and he missed it he was just short by 10 yards.
Well, yeah, it was pure touch. He just didn't go to the right place.
It was a great soft touch interception.
Yeah.
It was like something was a little off on a couple
right.
of
To be clear, I mean, he was not good in this game, and he made as many bad decisions with the football as I think I can remember him doing in a single game in this game. And I do think it's worth bringing up the question of, like, is there signal to the fact that that's happened to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes now in 4 weeks against the Jets defense? I kind of feel like it isn't, though, because as good as the Jets defense was, and they were really good in this game, that doesn't explain Mahomes just going and lobbing it to two guys.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't think they caused those meltdowns.
The negated interception did have pressure there.
Sure, but
they did start to collapse the pocket. Like Mahomes says, well, sometimes. Other times, of course, they let him run.
Right.
But yeah, I felt like Josh Allen's picks and at least one of Mahomes were just, at least two of them probably, I guess, were unforced.
That's what I'm saying. I think the Jets defense is very good and absolutely caused some negative plays for Mahomes and the offense. I don't think it caused the meltdowns for both quarterbacks, though. Like that, I don't know if you can call it coincidence, but I don't think the Jets defense is going to cause these like sequential meltdowns from every good quarterback they face. Like, I think for some reason that's just happened 2 weeks out of 4 to two of the best quarterbacks in football.
Yeah, I'm curious with the Chiefs still have some offensive issues to work out. Like they should have scored 30. Mahomes could have run in. By the way, that was when he decided to run out of bounds instead of just taking it into the end zone.
More points.
They would have scored 30. They would have covered. A lot of people would have cared. But Mahomes just goes down instead. But those last few scrambles were incredible. I thought it was a surprising move by the Jets because they had a few plays, the Jets, where they played man, but they had C.J. Mosley and a spy. They looked fast, man. The Jets were flying around the field, taking away the scrambles a couple times. And then they didn't on the last play. They played man on 3rd and 9 with no spy. And that's just so much pressure on the defensive line because that's the Chiefs' offensive line. Not only are they good at just pass protection overall, but they're also good at staying sticky on their blocks because they know Mahomes is going to find the hole, right? More so than other offensive lines. So playing man at that point, really risky by the Jets with no help, expecting your 4 rushers to keep Mahomes in the pocket. And it was really an easy pickup, not like the 25-yarder. Zach Wilson played well overall. The one other play that was underrated here, Breece Hall has a 43-yard run. Mm-hmm. And Tyler Conklin's his downfield blocker. He trips him. Like he looked like he was ready to set up. He had one-on-one for Tyler Conklin, the tight end, to block the safety. And Breece Hall tripped him up. It could have been a 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was. And the Jets didn't end up scoring on that drive. Just another little hidden play in there.
They had so many of those like almost plays in this game. I mean, honestly, when if you take as given Mahomes throwing them the ball that many times, they should have won this game and didn't. The Chiefs' offense it's strange because we're in this world now where four games is just a slightly strange sample size because it feels like it should be enough to say anything, and yet you take one weird game in there and it's like that. Well, I don't know what to do with any of this. Like Dallas with the Arizona game. Kansas City has now had these 4 games, and really, if you take out the Bears, who look for the majority of the season like an absolute disaster, their offense has struggled in all of them, right? Like they stomped the Bears, but they struggled against Detroit. They struggle against Jacksonville. They struggle against this with the caveat that they still should have put up 30. And it's like, this is not the Kansas City Chiefs team that we're accustomed to seeing. I do think, though, that they have, the way Miami now, in 2 years, has a history of like starting fast with Mike McDaniel and then maybe fading throughout the year, right? And Sean McVay's offense was like that for a long time, right? It would start incredibly, and then as the year wore on, it would start to get figured out a little bit. I kind of feel like the Chiefs are the opposite. They seem to start slowly a little bit, and we get to these, should we be worried about this offense? Is it the same with that Tyreek Hill? Is it, you know what I mean? Or have teams figured it out with too high, blah, blah, blah. And then they actually figure out answers as the year gets on. And by the time we get to December, it'll look like exactly the same Chiefs it always looks like, and they'll be back in the Super Bowl again. But like for the first couple of months, we start to, ask questions about, is everything right in Kansas City?
Just to put some numbers to your analysis there, the Chiefs are 7th this year as an offense in EPA per play. If you take out the Bears game, though, they're about 15th, 16th. So, right. What you're saying is we've seen 3 out of 4 games where they've been a mid-tier offense, and then one where they were unstoppable against one of the worst defenses in the league in the Bears.
Right.
So, just something to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. Play the Vikings next week, I believe, right?
That's going to be interesting.
So Chiefs, we'll say they survive to go to 3-1. Jets fall to 1-3, and we've got more stories to discuss this week. Zach Wilson is back. It was a good game. He finished 28 for 39 for 245.
He played
just
well.
Completing that level, the high level of passes.
If you could get that Zach
hitting
Wilson,
some of the underneath stuff that he needed.
If you could get that Zach Wilson every week, the Jets would be in the playoffs. But there's very little evidence so far to suggest that that's possible.
And it might be too late because they're 1-3.
Yeah.
The one thing I did tweet before the game, and I was thinking, I can't remember if I said on the podcast, Zach Wilson played against the Bills. We know what the Bills are defensively. The Cowboys and the Patriots. Like New England gave up 38 yesterday, but 14 were on offense. Mm-hmm. And they made a bunch of red zone stops against the Cowboys. The Patriots' defense is pretty good. They slowed down the Dolphins.
Sure.
So Zach Wilson played 3 of the top 5 or 6 defenses in the NFL. And the Chiefs were playing like a top 5 defense, and he did a nice job against them. So that was like the one thing that made me say, let's pump the brakes on the hate. Like there's no history of success with Wilson, but he's also had a tough stretch here in place of Rodgers.
I mean, he faces some good teams for the rest of the season as well. On the other hand, like 3 of his next 6 games are against Denver. I mean, that's looking pretty good at the moment. The New York Giants, who can't necessarily stop anybody. The Raiders, who can't really stop anybody on defense. So there's some very favorable defenses coming up, in addition to tough ones. Like he also faces the Eagles and the Bills again and Miami. Like there's some tough teams as well, but it definitely gets easier than it's been.